Welcome. Step softly and close the door behind you. This place is quiet for a reason. Some rooms were never meant to be opened, and yet you found your way here. Tonight's theme is family secrets, the kind buried under floorboards, sealed in photo frames, and spoken about only when the power's out. You'll hear true-tone stories of missing names in family trees, keys that should never turn, portraits that add people who don't exist, and relatives everyone swears they don't. Remember, these aren't monsters outside the house. These are the things your own last name keeps in its pocket. What makes tonight different is simple. These stories don't end when the video does. You may recognize a detail in attic latch, an old VHS, a grave with no dates, and realize you've lived next to the answer for years. If you sleep after this, it won't be easily. Most people listen, shiver, and move on without subscribing. If you're one of the few who stays, prove it. Join us so you don't miss the next door we unlock. Tell me, what time is it where you are right now? And where are you watching from? Leave it in the comments. I'll be reading. You might want to leave a light on. Let's begin. The first night I stayed in my mother's old house, I heard something moving above me. Not just the creak of wood or settling beams. It was a slow, dragging shuffle that stopped every time I held my breath. The attic had always been locked. My mom used to say it was for storage, though no one ever remembered her going up there. When I moved in after her funeral, I found the small brass key tied to a piece of black string on the kitchen counter. I almost threw it away. But that first night, when the sound came again, deliberate, heavy, I knew I'd never sleep unless I checked. The air in that house was thick, like it hadn't been opened in years. The wallpaper peeled in slow curls, the scent of mothballs and dust hanging everywhere. I'd inherited the house, her debts, her silence, and that key. I stared up the narrow staircase, listening to something shift above. The sound was faint, like cloth dragging across wood. I told myself it was a raccoon, a pipe, anything but what it sounded like. Footsteps pacing just beyond the ceiling. The attic door sat at the top of the hall, plain, painted over, no knob, only a keyhole. I didn't open it that night. I went back to bed and told myself I imagined it. But around 3:12 a.m., I woke again to the sound of something rolling across the floorboards above, like a marble. Then, a soft knock, 3 times, directly above my bed. By morning, I decided to open it. I told myself it was practical. I had to check for animals. But the way my hand trembled when I held that brass key told another story. The lock clicked easier than I expected. The door swung open an inch, and a breath of cold, dry air slipped down the stairs. It smelled faintly sweet, like old perfume buried under mildew. I hesitated. Then I pushed it fully open. The light from the hall barely reached inside. I climbed halfway up, my phone flashlight trembling in my grip. The air felt different up there, stiller, heavier, like something was holding its breath. The attic wasn't empty. Boxers lined the edges, all identical. In the center sat an old rocking chair facing away from me. The floor beneath it was worn smooth, as if it had been used often. I whispered, "Hello?" The chair creaked once. I froze. Dust danced in the beam of my flashlight. My pulse hammered. I took one step forward, the wood groaning under my weight. The chair stopped moving. I could see the backrest now. Floral upholstery, faded and torn. Something about the air felt wrong, like the temperature dropped 5 degrees the moment I entered. That's when I noticed the boxers weren't labeled with years or names. They were numbered, 1 through 9, and the 9th one, the last in the row, was slightly open. Inside, I saw a stack of Polaroids. The first was of me. I nearly dropped it. The photo looked old, maybe 20 years, at least. I was standing in front of the house, maybe 5 years old, holding a balloon, but my mom's house burned down when I was 6. The new house was rebuilt after that, except This photo showed the same porch, the same windows, the same paint. I flipped through the rest of the stack. Each photo was of someone, a different person every time, standing in front of that same house, each smiling, each holding a balloon. There were 9 boxes, 9 people, and the 9th box had my name written on the inside flap. The sound came again, that slow shuffle. But this time, it wasn't above me. It was behind me. I turned the light toward the stairs. Nothing. Then the door slammed shut. The lock clicked from the inside. My phone light flickered. I tried the handle, but it wouldn't move. The air felt suffocating, a dry, sweet rot like wilted flowers. I could hear the chair rocking again, faintly at first, then faster. I pointed the light at it. It was empty. I don't remember how long I stood there frozen. Maybe a minute, maybe an hour. The sound finally stopped. When I tried the door again, it opened easily, swinging outward like nothing had happened. Downstairs, everything looked normal. The morning light through the curtains, the quiet hum of the fridge. But the key was gone. For the next few days, I pretended nothing happened. I stayed busy cleaning, sorting through her things. I even started to believe I'd imagined it, until I noticed the new photograph on the hallway wall. It was me again, standing in front of the house, holding the balloon. Same as before, only this one had a date printed on the bottom corner. April 17th, 2024. That was yesterday. I tore it down and checked every frame in the house. Every picture of my mother, my childhood, the neighbors, they were all the same. But in each one, something was slightly different. A shadow in the window that wasn't there before. A hand on someone's shoulder that didn't belong. My mother's smile stretched a little too wide. I called my aunt to ask about the photos. She went silent for a long time before saying she promised she'd stopped doing that. I asked what she meant. She hung up. That night, I couldn't sleep. Around 2:45 a.m., I heard the faint creak again. Not from above this time, but from the hall. I grabbed a flashlight and peeked out. Every picture on the wall was tilted slightly sideways, like someone had brushed past them at the end of the hall. The attic door stood open. I swear I locked it shut. Something was standing halfway in the darkness, watching me. It looked like a person, small, hunched, wearing something that shimmered in the light, like a child's party dress. I said, "Who's there?" It didn't move. I stepped closer, and the smell hit me: dust, perfume, something sickly sweet. My flashlight flickered again, and in that moment of darkness, I heard a whisper. So close, it brushed my ear. "You were supposed to stay in your box." The light came back, and the figure was gone. Only the rocking chair moved slowly back and forth, empty. I left the house that night. I booked a motel 2 towns over, and told myself I'd sell the place. But when I woke the next morning, my car keys were missing. My phone showed a single new photo, saved to my gallery. Me, asleep in that motel bed. Taken from the corner of the room, there was a faint reflection in the mirror, a woman's outline. I drove back to the house in daylight, shaking the whole way. I just wanted to grab my things and leave for good. The front door was unlocked. The key, the brass one, sat back on the counter wiped clean. Upstairs, the attic door was wide open, sunlight pouring through a crack in the roof. I saw the boxers again, only this time, there were 10. The new one had no number, just a blank space and my name written cleanly in the center. Inside was a photo of me sitting on the floor of the attic, holding this same photo in my hands. I don't remember taking it. That was 3 days ago. I've tried leaving. Every time I drive away, the road bends and brings me right back to the same dirt driveway, no matter what direction I take. The GPS spins in circles. Last night, I heard the attic door open again. This time, I didn't move. I just sat in the dark, listening to the soft creak of the chair and the faint rustle of photographs shifting inside boxes. When I checked this morning, Another picture was added to the wall downstairs, me, sitting in the living room, staring at the ceiling. There's no camera here, no phone, no one else. The air feels different now, like the house is breathing with me. Sometimes, when I blink, I see flashes, not of ghosts, but moments that don't make sense. My mom standing at the attic stairs, whispering to someone above her. A little boy I don't recognize smiling through the window. 9 faces staring down from the rafters, smiling like family portraits. The smell of perfume has spread through every room. I found the bottle on my nightstand, half full. I've never owned it. I tried burning one of the photographs, just one. The moment the flame touched the paper, a scream ripped through the house. Not loud, but deep, muffled, like someone screaming through fabric. The photo didn't burn. The flame went out instantly, leaving the paper cold. I looked closer and realized something new. Behind every person in those photos, faintly visible in the background, the rocking chair was always there, occupied. I called my aunt again. She answered this time, voice trembling. "You opened it, didn't you?" she asked. I didn't answer. "You were never supposed to." "Your mother? She made a deal, years ago. Every generation, one of us takes care of the attic. One of us keeps it closed. If it opens, it chooses someone new." I asked what it was. She said, "It's not a what, it's who." Then hung up again. It's 3:11 a.m. right now. The exact time I first heard the knocking. I can hear it again. 3 knocks, soft, above my bed. I'm writing this hoping someone finds it, or maybe just to convince myself it's real. The attic door is creaking open, slow and careful. I can see the shadow of the rocking chair moving through the crack of light. Something's coming down the stairs. I can hear bare feet on the wood. The perfume smell is stronger now, choking. Almost it stops outside my door. A voice whispers through the keyhole. It's my mother's voice. "Sweetheart, your turn." The lock clicks. I think I understand now why there were 9 boxes. Each one for someone who came before, and the 10th. For me, if someone finds this, don't come looking for the house. Don't touch the attic key. Don't open the door. It doesn't want freedom. It wants a caretaker. The rocking chair has stopped. The floorboards outside my room are quiet again, but I can hear breathing, slow, steady, just on the other side of the door. I think it's waiting for me to move. The last photo I found this morning showed something I can't explain. It's of the attic empty, except for the chair. And sitting in it, head bowed, hands folded in my lap, is me. The first time I noticed it, I thought it was just a weird coincidence. The picture hung in my grandmother's hallway. Gold frame, faded matte, the kind of photo that made you think of better times. It showed my entire family standing in front of the old house. My parents, my uncle, my grandmother, all smiling. But what made me stop cold was the girl in the middle. She looked exactly like me. Not kind of, not a little, exactly. Same eyes, same crooked tooth, same faint birthmark near my ear. The problem was, the date printed at the bottom said 1989. I wasn't born until 1998. I stood there staring at it for maybe 5 minutes, pretending to scroll through my phone so Grandma wouldn't notice me acting strange. The house smelled like lemon polish and old paper. Dust hung in the sunlight spilling through the lace curtains. Everything was familiar, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something in that picture was watching me back. That night I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that photograph. The girl's smile, the way her hand rested on my mother's shoulder, like they were close. I decided I'd ask Grandma in the morning, except when I brought it up, she froze, like I'd said something I wasn't supposed to. "Oh, that picture," she said after a long pause. "That's just an old family photo. Don't think too much about it." When I pressed her, she changed the subject and started talking about breakfast. I laughed it off. But something about her tone, The slight tremor in her voice told me she wasn't just dodging the question. She was scared. Later that day, when she went to nap, I walked down the hallway again. The air felt cooler there, like the temperature dropped a few degrees near that frame. I took the picture off the wall. On the back, written in pencil, were the words, "Family Portrait, June 12th. Before it happened. Before what happened." I flipped it over and stared again. The more I looked, the stranger it felt. The smiles looked too forced, too symmetrical. My father's hand seemed blurred, like he'd moved and behind the group, just visible in the window of the house, there was a shadow, a faint outline of someone else standing inside. That night, the house creaked non-stop. The floorboards groaned like someone was pacing in the room above mine, but I knew Grandma always slept downstairs. Around 2 a.m., I heard a soft tapping, not from outside, but from the hallway. Tap, tap, tap. I sat up, my throat dry. The air smelled faintly of old wood and lavender. The tapping came again, closer this time. I held my breath, then silence. When I finally worked up the courage to peek through the door, the hallway was empty, but the family photo was lying face down on the floor. In the morning, I asked Grandma if she'd heard anything. She just shook her head and said, "This house remembers too much. Best not to wake it." That phrase stuck with me. This house remembers. Over breakfast, I asked her again about the girl in the photo. She sighed and rubbed her temples like she'd been dreading the question. "She was your aunt," Grandma finally said. "Your father's sister. But Dad never mentioned having a sister." Grandma's face tightened. "There's a reason for that." She wouldn't say more. But later, while she dozed off watching TV, I snuck into her office. It was small, cluttered, filled with old papers and boxes of photos. I found a drawer labeled family albums. Inside were dozens of pictures, birthdays, graduations, Christmas mornings, and in all of them, that same girl appeared, always smiling, always in the center, until one year, she was gone. After that, it was like she'd been erased. No mention in writing, no name under any photo. It was as if the family had edited her out of existence, but she looked too real to be a trick of memory. The last photo I found was dated June 13th, 1989, the day after the family portrait. It showed the same porch, empty except for that faint shadow in the window. I was still staring at it when I heard my grandmother's voice behind me. "You shouldn't be looking at those." Her tone made my stomach drop. She was standing in the doorway, eyes wet, one hand gripping the frame. I stammered, something about being curious. "She wasn't supposed to be here?" Grandma said softly. "Not after what she did." "What did she do?" "She tried to come back." That night, I couldn't get the words out of my head. She tried to come back. Around midnight, the hallway light flickered. The house made that same creaking sound again, but this time, I heard footsteps. Soft, bare feet crossing wood. They stopped right outside my door. I waited, barely breathing. Then, the faintest whisper. "You look just like me." My whole body went cold. I turned on the lamp, but the bulb popped instantly. In the faint moonlight, I saw movement at the end of the hallway. Someone standing near the fallen photo frame. I blinked, and they were gone. The next day, I convinced myself it was a dream. Sleep deprivation, stress, whatever. But when I went to the hallway, the picture was back on the wall, perfectly centered, glass spotless. Except now, the girl's face wasn't dissimilar to mine. It was mine. The same haircut I had now. The same clothes I'd worn yesterday. I screamed for Grandma. She rushed over, looked at the photo, then at me, and whispered, "No, no, not again." She ripped it down and ran it outside, tossing it into the burn barrel. I watched the edges curl in the flame, but as it burned, I swore I saw the faint outline of the house behind the fire, the window, the shadow, and in that window, the same girl, smiling. Grandma spent the rest of the day locking every door and window, muttering prayers under her breath. By evening, she'd packed a small bag and told me we were leaving. "I should have sold this place after your father left," she said. "She's tied to it." "She always was." I asked again who the girl was. Grandma hesitated, then whispered, "Your father had a twin. She died in that house when they were 10, drowned in the creek out back. But every picture, every mirror, she found a way back into them." My throat went dry. "You mean she's haunting us?" "No," Grandma said. "She's looking for someone to take her place." That night, the storm came. Wind howled through the cracks in the siding, rain pelting the windows. The power flickered twice, then went out completely. I lay in bed with my phone flashlight on, staring at the ceiling. Every few minutes, thunder shook the walls. Then, faintly under the rain, I heard humming. A soft, childish tune. It came from the hallway again, the same direction as before. I got up, my legs shaking. The air felt damp and cold. When I stepped into the hall, I saw her, a girl about my age, standing by the burned patch on the wall where the portrait used to hang. Her skin looked pale and blurred, like she didn't belong in the same light. Her head tilted slightly, eyes wide with something like sadness. She whispered, "You don't have to stay. I'll take your place." Before I could move, she raised her hand, and I realized it wasn't a reflection. It was reaching out. I ran back to my room and slammed the door. My heart pounded so hard I thought I'd faint. I grabbed my phone and called my dad, even though we hadn't talked much in years. He answered on the third ring. His voice sounded tired. "Dad," I gasped, "what happened to your sister?" Silence. Then he said, "Don't say her name. You knew about her." He sighed. "I used to see her too, when I was your age. Mom said the same thing to me, that she wanted to come back, that she needed someone to take her place. That's why I left that house." "Why didn't you tell me?" I shouted. "Because once you talk to her," he said quietly, "she doesn't stop." The call cut out. My screen froze, then went black. I don't remember falling asleep, but when I woke up, it was still dark. My phone lay on the nightstand, battery drained. The air was freezing, visible breath kind of cold. I sat up, and my eyes landed on something on the wall opposite me, the family photo. The same one Grandma burned. Except now, it wasn't old and faded. It looked new, glossy, like it had just been taken. And this time, Grandma wasn't in it. Neither was my dad, just me, standing on the porch, smiling stiffly beside that girl. I felt dizzy. The room tilted. My breath came out ragged. There was a faint reflection in the glass, someone standing behind me. I turned, and she was there, up close. She looked almost human. Same face, same eyes, same hair. But her smile didn't move right. It stretched too wide, trembling at the corners. Her skin flickered like an old VHS image, thin and flickering. "You took my picture," she whispered. "Now I can take yours." Her hand touched my shoulder, and for a second, I swear I felt her heartbeat through my skin, cold and steady. Then the lights flashed, just once. The camera click echoed in my head, even though there wasn't one. When I blinked, she was gone. The photo on the wall now showed two of her. I tried to wake Grandma, but she wouldn't respond. Her bed was empty, sheets cold. Her car was still outside, every door locked. I searched the entire house, but she was nowhere. The only thing left was her reflection, faintly visible in the window beside the porch. She was standing next to the girl, both smiling. It's been 3 days since then. Every mirror in the house shows me standing with someone else. Sometimes it's her, sometimes it's Grandma. Their faces change, their smiles don't. At night, I hear the clicking again, that faint sound of a camera shutter somewhere in the dark. Sometimes the flash comes from inside the walls. I tried breaking the photos, burning them, They just reappear the next day. The more I destroy, the more the house fills with new ones. And in every new photo, I look a little less like me. I think I understand it now. The family portrait we never took wasn't a single picture. It's the one that keeps updating, the one that replaces the living with the willing. I'm writing this from the kitchen table. The air smells like smoke and rain. My phone keeps taking pictures on its own. I can't stop it. The newest one just appeared in my gallery. It's a shot of the hallway and the two figures standing at the end. One of them looks exactly like me. The other is holding a camera, and both are smiling. If you ever see a family photo that feels wrong, don't look for yourself in it. You might already be there. The night it started, I woke up to the sound of someone laughing in the living room. It wasn't the TV. It wasn't my dad. Either he'd been asleep since 9. The laugh was low, wet, like a smoker's chuckle, rough around the edges. I froze in bed, holding my breath. It came again, followed by the creak of the old couch springs, like someone shifting their weight. The air smelled faintly of cigarette smoke. My dad quit years ago. That was the first time I heard him. The uncle no one remembers. The next morning, I asked my dad if he'd been up late. He looked at me like I was weird for asking. I was out cold, bud. Why? I just thought I heard someone. He shrugged it off. But when I mentioned the smell of smoke, something flickered behind his eyes. A small nervous pause before he said, "You probably smelled the fireplace." We hadn't used the fireplace in months. Our family wasn't big. Just me, Dad, and Grandma. Mom left when I was a kid, and Grandma was the type who sat quiet most of the time, staring out the window at nothing. She lived with us, though half the time she acted like she didn't know who we were. That afternoon, I was sitting with her while Dad fixed the gutters outside. She kept humming softly, eyes unfocused. I asked, "Grandma, did Dad have any brothers?" Her humming stopped mid-note. For a second, she just stared straight ahead, face completely blank. Then she whispered, almost too softly to hear, "Not anymore." I waited for her to explain, but she just went back to humming. That night, I woke again. Same time, around 2:15 a.m. The laugh came from the hallway this time, closer. Slow footsteps followed, dragging a little between each step, like someone whose shoes were too big. The floor creaked softly. I could hear breathing. I whispered, "Dad." No answer. The footsteps stopped, right outside my door. The faint smell of cigarettes drifted in, again mixed with something older, like damp wood and basement air. I stared at the door crack. There was a shadow, tall, broad, completely still. I didn't move until I heard it turn away and shuffle back down the hall. In the morning, Dad was pacing in the kitchen, frustrated. "I swear someone's been in the shed," he muttered. "Tools are missing. The padlock's off. Could it be an animal?" I asked, my voice small. He shook his head. "Animals don't take screwdrivers." When Grandma came in for breakfast, she looked pale. Her hair was unbrushed, her nightgown wrinkled. She kept glancing at the hallway behind me. When I asked what was wrong, she whispered, "He's awake again." That day I searched the house. Old photos, boxers, anything. Nothing mentioned another brother. But then, in a box buried behind the couch, I found a black and white picture with folded edges. It showed my dad as a kid, maybe 10, standing beside another boy, older by a few years. They looked almost identical, except for the eyes. The older boys were dark, deep, unsettling. On the back of the photo was a name written in faint pencil, Eddie. I ran my finger over it. The paper felt cold. When I showed it to Dad, he went still. "Where did you find that?" he asked quietly. "In the old box behind the couch." He took it from me and stared for a long moment, then slid it into his jacket pocket. "That's old family stuff. Don't go digging through there again, all right?" He sounded angry, but not at me. Later I checked. The picture was gone. That night, I slept with my lamp on. The house felt heavier, like the air had thickened. Every little sound made my skin crawl. At exactly 2:15, the lamp flickered. The bulb dimmed, then brightened again. The smell hit first smoke, basement damp, sweat. Then came the whisper, "Where's my picture?" It was right beside my bed. I turned my head, heart hammering. There was a man crouched there in the dim light. His face was wrong, stretched thin, like the skin didn't fit his skull right. His clothes were old, torn at the sleeves, stained with something dark. But the worst part was his grin. His teeth were yellow, cracked, too many of them showing. "I used to live here," he whispered. "You know that, don't you?" I couldn't move, couldn't scream. He leaned closer, the stench of smoke filling my lungs. "They forgot me." Then he straightened up, his head brushing the ceiling, and walked out of the room. When I finally could move, I ran to Dad's room, but he wasn't there. His bed was cold. I found him an hour later, asleep in the armchair downstairs, TV still on static. The next morning, I told him everything. He didn't laugh, didn't call me crazy, just stared out the window with this distant, hollow look. Finally, he said, "Eddie wasn't supposed to come back." I waited, heart pounding. "He was my older brother," Dad said. "He died before you were born, Grandma." "She doesn't talk about it. We don't talk about it." "How did he die?" Dad's jaw tightened. "It was an accident. But he wasn't right at the end. He used to say things, hear things. He'd talk to people who weren't there. Then one night, he disappeared. They found him a week later in the creek behind the old house. He rubbed his eyes. We never took a photo again after that. That night, I couldn't sleep at all. I kept picturing his face, that grin, the whisper. Around 2:15, I sat up and turned on the lamp before anything could happen. But when the light came on, something was different. The photo I'd seen earlier, the one Dad took, was sitting on my desk again. But now, there was a third person in it. Me, standing beside Eddie, smiling stiffly, my eyes empty. I dropped it instantly, heart racing. When I looked again, it was back to normal, just Dad and Eddie. But the smell of smoke filled the room again the next morning. Grandma wouldn't come out of her room. When I knocked, she just said, "He's angry. He's been waiting too long." Her voice sounded small, like a child's. Later, I found cigarette ash scattered near the hallway floor vent. I lifted the cover and saw something inside, a piece of paper rolled up tight. I pulled it out. It was a torn page from an old police report. The top read, "Unresolved. Edward Lawson, missing, presumed dead." Below that, scribbled in faded ink, "Last seen near residence. Multiple witnesses report smell of smoke. Case reopened 1989, closed again 1991. I brought it to Dad. He didn't even read it. He just said, "I told you not to dig." That night, Grandma screamed. I bolted out of bed and ran to her room. She was sitting up, eyes wild, pointing toward the closet. "He's in there," she shouted. Dad rushed in seconds later, but the closet was empty. She kept repeating, "He came for me. He wants to finish the photo." Dad tried to calm her, but she wouldn't stop shaking. "You buried him wrong," she cried. "You left him there. He's not done." I didn't sleep again that night. The next evening, the house went quiet. Dad didn't come home from work. Grandma refused to leave her room. I sat on the couch watching the light fade outside. Then I saw movement in the hallway, a figure. He was standing under the attic door this time. The same broad frame, the same slouched shoulders. His skin looked grayer now, almost see-through in the dim light. He turned his head toward me, and I heard his voice, rough and cold. "You should have remembered me." He started walking. Every step made the floor groan. The air grew thick with smoke, burning my throat. I backed up until I hit the wall. He stopped in front of me. His eyes were dark pits. His mouth twitched into that same awful grin. "Family forgets," he rasped. But the house doesn't. He reached out and pressed something into my hand, cold metal. When I looked down, it was a lighter. Then he was gone. When Dad finally came home hours later, I told him everything. He stared at the lighter, face pale. "That's his," he whispered. "They found it in his pocket when he stopped himself." "When, what?" I asked. "When they pulled him out of the creek." I didn't want to stay another night, but Dad said we couldn't leave Grandma alone. We both slept in the living room, lights on. Around 2 a.m., the power went out. Complete darkness. I could hear Dad breathing beside me. Then the faint creak of footsteps above, in the attic. "Stay here," he whispered. He grabbed a flashlight and started up the ladder. The beam shook as he climbed. I waited, heart racing, watching the dust fall from the ceiling. Then I heard him gasp, "Dad." No answer. The light went out. Then a whisper came from above, low and cold. "One more for the picture." I bolted up the ladder. The attic was empty. The flashlight lay on the floor, beam rolling across old boxes. Dad was gone. When I came back down, Grandma was standing in the hallway, staring up at me. Her face looked hollow, her eyes blank. "He took him," she said softly. "He always finishes what he starts." I tried to call the police, but the phone lines were dead. My cell had no signal. Then the smell started again. Smoke, thick and heavy, coming from the living room. I ran back and saw the lighter sitting on the coffee table, flame flickering on its own. Next to it was a new photograph, fresh. It showed all of us standing together, me, Dad, Grandma, and Eddie. Dad's eyes were open but empty. Grandma's smile was wrong, frozen. Eddie stood behind us, his hand on my shoulder. I tried to burn the photo, but it wouldn't catch. The paper curled, but the image stayed clear. I tore it in half, and the house shuddered. Every light flickered on and off. The walls groaned like they were breathing in the reflection of the TV screen. I saw someone standing behind me again. He was closer this time. His smile stretched wider. His eyes looked almost proud. He whispered, "Now we're all together." It's been 3 days since then. The police came. They said the house was empty when they arrived. No sign of my dad. No trace of Grandma. They found the lighter in the ashes of the living room carpet. They also found a photograph, but not the one I remember. This one only shows 3 people, Grandma, Dad, and a boy I don't recognize. The boy looks just like me. I've been staying with relatives since then. They don't talk about what happened. They act like my dad never existed. When I bring him up, they go quiet or change the subject. Yesterday, my aunt hung a new family photo in the hallway. Everyone smiling, standing in front of her house. But when I walked by tonight, I noticed something in the corner of the frame, a figure standing just behind us, barely visible in the glare. Tall, slouched, grinning, and the faint smell of cigarette smoke drifting from the hallway. Every family forgets someone. The problem is, sometimes they remember you back. The smell was the first thing that told me something was wrong. It wasn't just old house must or the faint mildew that clung to the wallpaper. It was sharp, metallic, almost sweet, like pennies and spoiled flowers. It came from the hallway outside Mom's bedroom, the one door she always kept locked. That night, I woke up to the sound of the latch turning. I'd never heard that door open before. The house was dark, except for the faint yellow light coming from under her door, and I remember thinking, she never leaves that light on. I slipped out of bed, barefoot on the cold wood. Every step creaked, and with each one, I felt the hair on my arms rise higher. The light flickered once, then steadied. Then came the sound, soft at first, like someone dragging a wet mop across the floor. Then heavier, wet footsteps, slow and uneven, coming from inside that room. I froze halfway down the hall. The smell hit stronger now, metallic, mixed with rot. My throat tightened. "Mom," I whispered. The sound stopped. The light under the door flickered again. Then, so faintly I almost missed it, I heard her voice calm, almost whispering, "Go back to bed, honey." Her tone wasn't right. It was flat, hollow. "Mom." This time, no answer. Just the scrape of something metal dragging across the floor. I backed away, fast, and shut myself in my room. I lay awake until sunrise, listening to that faint metallic scrape start and stop, over and over again. In the morning, she acted like nothing happened. She made breakfast, humming softly, hair tied up in that loose bun she always wore. Her skin looked pale, though, almost gray around the edges, and her hands were trembling slightly as she stirred the coffee. "You okay?" I asked. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Did you sleep well?" I stared at her. "I heard noises last night, from your room." Her hand froze on the counter. For half a second, her eyes flicked up, cold, sharp. Then the smile returned. "Just the pipes," she said. "Old houses make funny sounds." But the smell was still there. That afternoon, I tried the door. It was locked again, same as always. I bent down and peered through the keyhole. Dark. I couldn't see much, just shadows and a faint reflection of something metallic on the floor. Then something moved. A shape shifted near the far corner, small, hunched, barely visible in the dim light. I jumped back, heart pounding. When I leaned closer again, the light was gone. The reflection too, just pitch black. I didn't realize until later that I could still smell that same metallic scent. Faint but there, like something leaking through the keyhole. Growing up, Mom always told me the room was for storage. She never let me inside, even when I was a kid. She said it was messy, full of sharp tools and broken glass. I believed her, until now. That night, I tried to stay up again, around midnight. The light under her door came on. This time, I didn't move. I sat in bed, holding my breath, listening. The dragging sound came again, wet, heavy, like something being pulled, and then, the voice. But it wasn't my mom's. It was low, cracked, and it whispered a name. My name. I turned on the lamp instantly, chest tight. I could still hear it through the walls. A breathy whisper that didn't stop until sunrise. By morning, I decided to find out what was in that room. While Mom was out grocery shopping, I searched her dresser for the key. It didn't take long to find a small brass key wrapped in tissue, tucked behind her jewelry box. My hands were shaking as I stood in front of the door. I could hear faint ticking inside, like something metal swinging back and forth. I turned the key. The door creaked open. The smell hit first, stronger than before. Metallic, sweet, rotten. My eyes watered. The room was dim, curtains drawn, air thick and wet. And in the center, an old wooden table. On it sat a large metal pan filled halfway with dark red liquid. Flies buzzed above it. Beside the table were jars, lined neatly, labeled in Mom's handwriting. Each one had something inside, small, pale, floating in cloudy fluid. At first I thought they were vegetables, pickled something, but then I saw the shapes. Tiny hands, tiny feet. I stumbled back, gagging. That's when I noticed the photos on the wall. Polaroids, dozens of them. Each one showed Mom, younger, holding a newborn baby, wrapped in a blanket, smiling, proud, the same baby, again and again, but older in each picture, up to maybe 2 years old. Then nothing. And every photo after that, it was just Mom, standing alone. I ran out of the room, slammed the door, and threw up in the sink. When she came home, I couldn't even look at her. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. She noticed immediately. "What's wrong, honey?" I blurted it out before I could stop myself. "What's in that room?" Her face changed. Not angry, blank, like she was erasing herself. "You went in there?" she asked softly. I couldn't speak. She sighed. I told you not to. Her tone wasn't human. Calm, cold, tired. That night, I locked my door and pushed the dresser against it. I kept the lights on until morning. When I woke up, she was sitting in the chair across from my bed. I don't know how she got in. The door was still locked. She just sat there, smiling faintly. Her eyes were red-rimmed, tired. I'm not mad, she whispered. But you shouldn't have gone in there. What's in those jars, Mom? She tilted her head. My children. My throat went dry. What? She smiled wider. You weren't the first. I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. I couldn't keep them, she said softly. But I couldn't let them go either. So I kept a piece of them, so they'd always be with me. She reached out a hand, trembling. And now, they want you to join them. I screamed. She just laughed, a soft, broken sound, and walked out. The next morning, the door to her room was wide open. The jars were gone. The table too. The smell was worse than ever, thick, sickly, filling every corner of the house. I called the police, told them she was gone, that something was wrong. When they arrived, they searched every room, every closet. They found nothing, no jars, no photos, no trace of blood. They said it smelled like bleach. When they left, I was alone again. That night, I heard her humming, soft, like a lullaby, coming from the walls. The lights flickered. My phone screen glitched, her picture flashing across it for a split second. I turned off the lamp and listened. The humming grew louder then, faintly. I heard something else, the soft clinking of glass. I got up and followed the sound to the kitchen. All the cabinet doors were open. Inside, lined up neatly, were jars, new jars, each filled with that same cloudy liquid, each labeled with a date. This week's date, and every label had my name on it. I ran out of the house that night and never went back. I stayed with a friend across town, tried to convince myself I imagined it, trauma, exhaustion, whatever. But I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her sitting in that chair, whispering you weren't the first. A week later, I got a call. They found her, or what was left of her. The police said they discovered her body in the creek behind our old house. She'd been there for days, maybe longer. They couldn't identify much, but the coroner said she'd been dead before I moved back in. That's the part that doesn't make sense. I saw her. I talked to her. I smelled her perfume every morning. They said maybe I was in shock. Maybe I imagined her, but I remember her touch, her voice, the way the floor creaked when she walked past my door. She was alive. I swear she was. They buried what was left of her last month. I didn't go, but last week, a package showed up at my new apartment. No return address, just my name written in her handwriting. Inside was a small mason jar, half filled with cloudy liquid, and something small floating inside. I didn't open it. I just buried it in the yard and poured salt over the dirt. But now, at night, I hear the same sound again, that soft clinking of glass. And sometimes, when I wake up, my window is open, even when I know I locked it. The smell is back too. Metallic, sweet, familiar. I keep telling myself it's in my head. That trauma can make you smell things that aren't there. But 2 nights ago, I found something under my bed. A small Polaroid it showed me, asleep, in this apartment. And standing beside the bed was Mom. Her skin looked gray, her eyes dark, her hand on my shoulder. It's 2:37 a.m. right now. The smell is stronger than ever. I can hear the jars clinking again, closer this time. There's a faint humming from the hallway. Her lullaby, and I swear, I can see lights spilling out from under my bedroom door, a soft yellow glow, like the one from her room that night. She's whispering again. I can't make out all the words, but I hear one sentence clearly. Don't worry, honey. I kept a piece of you too. The last thing I smell before the light goes out is that same metallic sweetness, the the scent of my mother's little secret. The first time I saw the tape, it was still half-melted. It lay on the garage floor, warped and blackened, the edges curled like something that had been alive once. I found it while sorting through Dad's stuff a week after he died. The smell hit me immediately, burnt plastic mixed with old gasoline and dust. It was the kind of smell that never left your nose. There was writing on the tape's cracked label, Home Video Menos 1990. Yoi too. That was the year Mom died. Dad had always told me there were no recordings of her. We lost everything in the fire, he said, and I believed him. But this was from the same year, with her handwriting on it. I should have left it there. I really should have. But curiosity is a kind of disease. I took it inside, wiped the soot off, and turned it over in my hands. The tape was deformed but not completely ruined. I remembered Dad's old camcorder in the attic, the one he swore was broken. I found it buried under boxes of tools and old Christmas lights. When I slid the tape in, the camera gave a faint mechanical click, and for a moment, I thought it wasn't going to work. Then the small screen blinked to life, grainy and gray. A recording started at first. It was normal, just static and muffled sound. Then the image sharpened, the living room in our old house. Mom sat on the couch, smiling shyly at the camera. She looked tired. Her hands were folded in her lap. "Say hi," came my father's voice from behind the camera. "Hi," Mom said softly, and her eyes darted toward something off-screen. "Do we really have to film this?" Dad laughed, not his usual laugh. It was low, strange, almost forced, just for memory's sake. The camera zoomed in too close on her face. She looked uneasy. Then the picture warped, the kind of glitch that comes from heat damage, and when it cleared, the setting had changed. The camera was pointed at the basement door, the same basement I hadn't opened since I was a kid. Someone was crying faintly in the background. I stopped the tape immediately. My skin prickled. The crying had sounded like a child, but I was the only child they ever had. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the old house sounded like a whisper. I kept thinking about how Dad had burned that tape, or tried to. What did he not want me to see? Around 3 a.m., I gave in and turned the camcorder back on. The image was dark now, night vision kicking in. The camera faced the basement again. I could see the door slightly open, light spilling from below. Dad's voice whispered from behind the camera, shaky this time. "I told you to stay quiet." Then a muffled sob, definitely a child's voice. The camera moved slowly down the basement stairs. Every step creaked, and the crying grew louder, softer, louder again, like whoever was making the sound was trying not to be heard. When the camera reached the bottom, it turned toward the far wall, toward a small wooden door I didn't remember. A storage space, maybe. The crying stopped, then a whisper, right next to the microphone. "Please, don't film this." It was Mom's voice. The screen flickered, and for a second, I saw Dad's hand holding a small object, shiny and metallic, then static. The tape kept playing, but there was only faint audio, something dragging, a thud, then footsteps. I hit stop. My breathing sounded too loud in the silence of the house. I took the tape out and stared at it. My reflection in the glossy plastic looked distorted, stretched. I didn't sleep that night either. The next morning, I went down to the basement. The air was colder there, damp, like stone. Dust coated everything. I could still see the faint burn. Marks on the walls from when Dad accidentally set fire to some boxers years ago, and there it was, that small wooden door. It looked exactly like it had on the tape. I stood there for a long time before touching it. The handle was rusted, cold. I tugged it open. Behind it was a crawl space, dark, narrow, reeking of mold. Something about the air in there felt wrong, like it hadn't been touched in decades. I shined my phone flashlight inside. There were boxes, old toys, a small wooden rocking horse I remembered from when I was a toddler. But beneath the toys, something else, a folded tarp, and under that, I saw bones. They were small, child-sized. I backed away, hitting my head on the low ceiling. My pulse hammered in my ears. I slammed the door shut and ran upstairs, gasping. I didn't call the police. Not right away. I don't even know why. I just sat at the kitchen table, shaking, trying to understand what I'd found. The camera was still sitting there, and part of me wanted to destroy it, burn it like Dad tried to do. But another part of me, the part that couldn't look away, wanted to know the truth. That night, I turned the tape on again. The static was worse now. The picture warped, but something new appeared. The living room again, same couch, except Mom wasn't there. The cushions were stained, dark and spreading. Dad stood in the middle of the frame, staring directly at the camera. "You shouldn't have watched this," he said. "It wasn't part of the old footage." I could tell. His face was older. The room behind him was darker. It looked like the house now, not then. "You should have left it alone," he said again. His voice cracked, angry and broken at once. "It's done. It's all gone." The picture distorted, his face melting into streaks of light. Then, faintly, behind him, I saw a movement. A figure standing in the hallway. Small, barefoot. The camera tilted, fell sideways. The tape ended in static. I tore the battery out and threw the camcorder across the room. It hit the wall and cracked open, the tape spilling halfway out. But even then, I swear I could hear it faintly. The soft sound of crying, coming from inside the tape itself. I didn't touch it again. I called the police the next morning. Told them about the bones. They came, searched, took everything. The boxes, the tarp, even the camera. They asked questions I couldn't answer. Who the child might have been. Why my father would hide that. I told them everything I knew. Which wasn't much. Days passed. Then weeks. They never called back. 2 months later, I got a visit from a detective. Middle-aged, tired eyes. He sat across from me at the table and placed a folder down. Inside were photos. The bones weren't human, he said. Pig bones, likely used for hunting practice or some kind of project. The tape, they claimed, was too damaged to recover properly. Nothing incriminating on it. Case closed. But I knew he was lying, because when he slid the folder toward me, one of the photos slipped out, a still frame from the tape. It showed my mother, sitting on that couch, looking terrified, and in her lap was a little boy. Not me, someone else. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about that boy. The way she held him, the way he looked at the camera, confused, scared. If those bones weren't human, then where was he? I went back down to the basement. The smell was still there, faint but familiar. The crawlspace door hung slightly open, even though I remembered closing it tight. Inside, there was something new. A VHS tape. Clean, not burned. On the label, in my father's handwriting. Home video, 2023. That was this year. I didn't even have to play it. I already knew what I'd see, but I did it anyway. The screen flickered. The camera was pointed at a doorway. My bedroom doorway. Someone was filming me sleeping. For a long minute, nothing happened. Just my slow breathing. Then the camera tilted down slightly, and a whisper came from behind it. "Still sleeping like your mother." My father's voice. I threw the camera off the table. The screen cracked, but didn't break. The tape kept playing. Audio warping was static. Footsteps. Closer now, then the faint sound of a door creaking open. The same door I'd left locked upstairs. A whisper again. "Don't worry. It's just a memory." The footage ended abruptly. I didn't stay in that house another night. I packed what I could and left, driving until sunrise. When I checked into a motel, I locked the door, pulled the curtains shut, and finally tried to sleep. But around 2 a.m., I woke up. The TV was on, even though I hadn't touched it. Snowy static filled the screen. Then, slowly, an image formed: the basement. Faintly lit, the crawlspace door wide open. The sound of crying again, and in the corner, something moved, small and pale. Crawling out of the darkness, I unplugged the TV, but the screen stayed on. The sound got louder, closer. The picture shook, as if whoever was holding the camera was walking toward the lens. Then it tilted up, and for a split second, I saw my own face staring back at me, eyes open, mouth moving, whispering something I couldn't hear. Then black. I left the motel before sunrise. I've been moving every few days since then. I don't sleep much. Every time I close my eyes, I dream of that crawlspace door opening, of the faint crying getting closer. I threw out the camcorder, smashed every tape I found. But sometimes, in the silence between 2 and 3 a.m., I still hear it. That faint click of a tape starting. Then his voice. You shouldn't have watched it. The last time I heard it was 2 nights ago. I was staying in a small apartment, a few towns over. I woke up to the sound of something rolling across the floor. A tape had stopped at my feet. The label was new, handwritten in that same slanted script I'd know anywhere. Home video, 2024, and under it, in smaller letters, final recording. It's still sitting on the floor beside me, and I can hear the faint whir of it playing, even though there's no camera left to watch it on. The first time I saw my sister post again, she'd already been dead for 3 weeks. It popped up on my phone at 2:13 a.m., a new photo on her old account. It was just a picture of a forest road, taken from the middle of the path. Trees bending inward, like they were whispering to each other. The caption read, "Back home." The same phrase she'd texted me the night before she disappeared. At first I told myself it had to be a glitch. Maybe someone hacked her account. Maybe Instagram was recycling old drafts. But the location tag wasn't from where we grew up. It was from a place I'd never heard of. Hollow Ridge. The worst part. The photo looked recent. The leaves were green. The air looked warm, but it was January. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I scrolled back through her page, I got that tight feeling in my chest, like the air around me was thinning. There were other new posts, too, 2 of them. One was a blurry shot of her hand holding a cup of coffee, sunlight spilling across her wrist. The second was a short video, a 5-second clip of her walking up a gravel path toward a small white house. The camera tilted down at the end, just enough for me to see a reflection in a window. Someone else was filming her. Her name was Lena. She was 27. She'd gone missing a month ago after leaving for a weekend solo trip. That's what she called it, a little escape. She needed time away from the city, she said. From me. From everything. When they found her car abandoned on an old logging road, the police said it looked like she'd just walked away. They found her phone in the passenger seat, battery dead, no signs of struggle. No note, no body. I was the one who had to identify her things. I remember her wallet, the smell of her old perfume clinging to the fabric of the seat. I remember thinking it didn't feel real. And now, 3 weeks later, she was posting like nothing happened. The next morning, I logged into her account using her old password. She never changed it. It still worked. Everything looked the same. Her bio, her profile picture, the hundreds of old photos of us growing up. But there was something strange. The new posts weren't listed in her grid. They only showed up on my feed. No likes, no comments, nothing. Just me seeing them. And when I checked her following list, there was one new account she'd added. A private profile with no picture and no posts. The username was at the other Lena. That name sat in my head all day. I couldn't stop thinking about it. The other Lena. What the hell did that mean? By evening, I'd worked myself up enough to drive out to the only place that made sense. The last location her phone had pinged before it died. The forest outside. A tiny town called Morrow's Hollow. The highway gave way to cracked back roads and silence. The deeper I drove, the heavier the air felt. My phone lost signal halfway there. When I finally saw the sign Hollow Ridge Trailhead, my stomach dropped. That was the same name on her post. I parked at the edge of the dirt lot. The forest around me was thick and quiet, the kind of quiet that hums. Cold air seeped through the windows. Her car had been found near here. I could almost picture her standing where I was now, hands in her pockets, taking that first photo. I don't know why I went farther. I just started walking down the trail, flashlight in hand. The trees were close together, their branches knitted above me. My boots crunched against frost-bitten leaves. A few minutes in, I noticed something ahead. A house, white siding, small porch, single light on inside. The same house from her video. I should have left, but I didn't. I walked up the steps, heart thudding so loud it drowned out everything else. There were no sounds, no wind, no birds, nothing. Just the soft hum of the porch light. I knocked once, no answer. Then I heard it. A soft shuffle from inside. Bare feet on wood. The door creaked open an inch. "Hello," I said, my voice shaking. A woman stepped into view, and for a second, I couldn't breathe, because it was her. Lena. She looked exactly the same. Same hair, same freckles, same faded blue sweater she used to wear around the apartment. But her eyes, something was off about them. They were darker, and she smiled like she'd been expecting me. "You found me," she said softly. I froze. "Lena." "What?" She stepped back and gestured for me to come in. "You should come inside. It's cold." Her voice was calm. Too calm, like she was reading from a script. Every instinct told me to run, but I followed anyway. The house was dim, small, filled with that dusty wood smell like an attic. There were pictures on the walls, photos of her, but they weren't ours. They showed her doing things she never did, working on a farm, sitting on a dock with strangers, cooking in a kitchen I'd never seen. And in every picture, she wore the same blue sweater. She made tea, set it down in front of me. "I didn't mean to scare you," she said. "I just wanted to see you again." I stared at her. "You're supposed to be dead, Lena." She tilted her head slightly. "Am I?" My throat tightened. "What is this place?" She smiled again. "Home." The same word from the post. That's when I noticed something. Behind her, a mirror hanging on the far wall. Except, it wasn't reflecting us. The room in the reflection was darker, empty, and behind the version of her in that mirror, there was movement. A second figure standing just out of frame. I blinked hard. The image flickered, like the glass itself was breathing. "Lena," I whispered. "What's in there?" She turned slowly, looked at the mirror. Then she smiled wider. "Me?" I stood up so fast, the chair toppled. "You're not her," I said. "You're not my sister." She didn't deny it. She just looked at me with that too wide grin, her voice low and quiet. She wanted to come home. I just let her. I backed toward the door. My pulse was pounding in my ears. "Don't you want to see?" she asked. "She's waiting." I ran. The second my hand hit the doorknob, the lights went out, pitch black. Then I heard it, the sound of nails dragging across wood. Right behind me, I bolted outside, sprinting down the trail. My flashlight flickered, the beam cutting through fog. The forest seemed wrong now, deeper, louder. I could hear footsteps behind me. When I reached the car, I turned back once. She was standing at the edge of the trees, watching, not moving, just smiling. I drove until sunrise. Didn't look back. Didn't tell anyone what I saw. When I finally stopped for gas, I checked her account again. Another post. It was a video this time. Me, running down that trail. Shot from behind. The caption read, "You found me again." I deleted my social media that day, changed my number, tried to move on, but the posts didn't stop. Every few days, another appeared, a photo of somewhere I'd been. My apartment, the grocery store, my car. All from the same account. At the other Lena, and she was always in the background smiling. I went to the police once, but they couldn't do anything. They said the account was a spoof, that anyone could be uploading those pictures. But I could feel her watching me. Every reflection, every mirror, every window at night. Sometimes I catch a glimpse of her, my sister standing just behind me, smiling like she's proud. And sometimes, when I look away fast enough, I see the second figure again, the one behind her, the one that doesn't smile. 2 weeks ago, I got a package, no return address. Inside was an old phone, my sister's phone, the same one they'd found in her car. The screen lit up as soon as I touched it. A single notification blinked at the top, new video uploaded. At the Otherlany opened it. The footage was shaky, handheld, a dim hallway. My hallway. The camera panned toward my bedroom door, slowly. Then the view shifted. The camera tilted down, a shadow moved under the crack of the door, and a voice, my sister's voice, whispered, "Let me in." I threw the phone into the trash. Didn't sleep that night. Around 3 a.m., I heard knocking. 3 soft knocks, right outside my bedroom. I stayed still, didn't breathe. Then a text came through on my phone, from an unknown number. "Why did you lock me out?" The next morning, I moved again. New apartment, new locks, new city. But last night, I woke to the sound of a door creaking open. When I looked, my front door was wide open, and sitting on the floor inside was her phone. Again. The wallpaper had changed. It was a picture of me, asleep. I don't go out much anymore. I cover my mirrors. I keep my lights on. I don't check social media, but sometimes the TV turns on by itself. Always the same channel. Static for a few seconds. Then a faint image, a forest road, sunlight through trees, and her voice, soft and cheerful, saying, "Back home." They never found her body, but I think that's the point. She doesn't need one anymore. She just needs me to open the door. And if you ever see a post tagged Hollow Ridge, don't click it, because she's still looking for someone to take her place. The first thing that felt wrong was how cold the envelope was. It had arrived in the mail that morning, thick, yellowed paper, no return address, my name typed across it in faded ink. I thought it was junk, until I saw the small label stamped on the corner, Department of Family Services Confidential. The second I opened it, I swear the air in my apartment changed. Inside was a manila folder. On the tab, written in marker, Adoption Record. Casey, 4297B. I wasn't adopted. At least, that's what I'd believed for 29 years. I didn't even make it past the first page before my hands started shaking. My full name was there, my date of birth, but underneath it, in the line marked biological parents, both fields were blacked out. The paper smelled like dust and something chemical, like an old hospital corridor. A single sticky note was attached to the corner, written in jagged handwriting. They found the other one. Do not contact the other one. I tried to laugh it off. Maybe it was some mix-up. But when I flipped through the next few pages, that feeling in my stomach got heavier. There was a photo of me as a baby, except I wasn't alone. There was another infant beside me. We looked identical. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. The image burned behind my eyelids every time I blinked. Around 1 a.m., I called my mom. She answered groggily, her voice dry. "Mom," I said, "I got something weird in the mail. From Family Services." She went silent. "I think it's a mistake," I continued. "It says adoption." I heard her inhale sharply. "You shouldn't have opened that." "What?" "It's old paperwork. Sweetheart, just throw it away. Why does it say I have a twin? Silence again. Then, barely above a whisper, you don't. And the line went dead. I didn't sleep that night. Every sound in my apartment felt amplified. The hum of the fridge, the creak of the pipes, even my own heartbeat echoing in my chest. I sat on the floor. The adoption file spread around me like pieces of a puzzle I didn't want to solve. Most of it was redacted, black lines covering entire paragraphs. But one page slipped out from between the others, folded differently, almost like it wasn't meant to be there. It was a handwritten note, dated March 1988. Subject 4297B, transferred. Remaining twin retained for observation. Condition stable. Recommend permanent separation. I read it again and again. Then I noticed the signature. It was my mother's. The next morning, I drove 3 hours to her house. The sky was gray, heavy, like rain was waiting for me to stop pretending everything was fine. When she opened the door, she looked smaller than I remembered, fragile, hollowed out around the eyes. I held up the folder. What is this? She didn't even glance at it. She just said, you shouldn't have gone looking. Mom, it says you signed something. Something about A. Her voice cracked. You were never supposed to know. Know what? She sank into a chair, rubbing her temples. Your brother didn't survive. Not really. What does that mean? She looked up at me. They said it was safer to let you live separate. Safer for everyone. Her hands were trembling now. Please, just forget it. But how do you forget you had a twin? That night, I stayed in a motel. I couldn't go home yet. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that photo to babies, side by side. I decided to look it up. Case hashtag 4297-B. The number lead nowhere. No database, no record. But the note in the file mentioned a hospital, Ravenhill Center, 1988. I googled it. The first result made my skin crawl. It had been shut down after ethical violations and loss of medical records. The address was only 2 towns over. I shouldn't have gone, but curiosity isn't curiosity when it feels like gravity. The road leading to the hospital was overgrown, lined with trees that looked half dead. The building itself was crumbling, broken windows, vines crawling up the walls. The sign out front still said Ravenhill Research Wing. Inside, the air was thick with mildew and the faint coppery temps of rust. My flashlight flickered over old gurneys, peeling paint. Stacks of yellow folders scattered across the floor. Every step echoed. Every shadow looked like it wanted to move. I found the records room by accident, a door barely hanging on its hinges. Inside were rows of cabinets, all labeled by year. 1988 was at the very back. I started pulling drawers open. Most were empty, but halfway through the bottom row, I found it, a folder with my name on it. Inside were photos, dozens of them. Me, my brother, machines attached to our heads, tubes running from our arms, both of us crying, and in the corner of one photo, someone watching from behind the glass. My mother. I dropped the picture. My hands were shaking so bad, I could barely hold the flashlight. Something moved behind me, a soft scrape, like a shoe against the floor. I turned around, no one there. Then I heard breathing, not mine. Slow, uneven, coming from the far side of the room. The beam of my flashlight hit a shape, a person standing in the doorway. He was tall, thin, his face hidden by the glare. Who's there? I said, voice cracking. He didn't answer, just stood there, chest rising and falling in that slow, heavy rhythm. When he stepped forward, I saw his face, or what was left of it. He looked like me. Same eyes, same jawline, but wrong. His skin was pale and blistered, like it had been burned or stretched too tight. His mouth hung open slightly, twitching. He took another step, and I saw the scars running across his scalp, lines of stitches that disappeared into his hair. "Don't be afraid," he whispered. His voice sounded fractured, like static. I stumbled back. "Who are you?" He tilted his head. "You know." I didn't move. "Couldn't. They told me you died," I said. He smiled, small and broken. "They lied." Then his expression changed, sadness flickering across his face like a shadow. "They kept me here. They wanted to see how much of you would fit in me." I didn't understand. "What are you talking about?" He reached up and tapped the side of his head. "One mind, two boats. They tried to share it, but you got out first." I took another step back. "You're not real." He laughed, a dry, hollow sound that made my stomach twist. "Then why do you remember this place?" Something behind him moved. A door creaked open on its own. Inside, a dim red light pulsed like a heartbeat. He gestured toward it. "They said it was safer this way. For you." I ran. I didn't look back. Didn't breathe until I was in the car. Hands gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. When I finally started the engine, my headlights flicked on, and for half a second, I saw him standing in the tree line smiling. I tried telling myself it was a hallucination. Shock, stress, whatever. But when I got home, something was waiting for me. The adoption file was on my kitchen table. I'd left it at my mother's house, and there was a new page. Inside, a medical report, dated the day I was born. Subject A released. Subject B retained. Conscious link appears active. Recommend termination. The last line was underlined twice, and below it, written in a shaky hand, was a single word: failed. The next day, Mom called. Her voice was distant, broken. "I saw him," I said. "He's alive." She started crying. "He came to see me last night." "What did he want?" He said he just wanted to be whole. Her breath hitched. "I think he means you." The line went dead again. That night, my apartment felt wrong. The lights flickered. The air tasted metallic. Every reflection seemed off, like I was moving a second slower than my own shadow. At 3:12 a.m., my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Do you still feel what I feel?" I stared at it for a long time. Then another came. "Let's fix it this time." I left the apartment. I don't know where I thought I was going. Maybe to a motel. Maybe to nowhere. But when I got to the parking lot, there was already someone leaning against my car. Same pale skin. Same scars. Same eyes. He smiled. "You took everything," he said. My heart hammered in my throat. "Stay away from me." He stepped closer. "I can't. We're the same." I reached for my phone, but it slipped from my hand. He caught it before it hit the ground. "You were the one they kept," he whispered. "Not me." Then he pressed the phone against my chest. "Now you'll understand." The screen lit up. My reflection filled it, but it wasn't me. It was him. I don't remember what happened after that. I woke up in the hospital 2 days later. They said I was found unconscious in a burned-out car on the edge of the woods. No sign of anyone else. They called it a mental breakdown. But I know what I saw. The file's gone. My mother won't answer my calls. And every now and then, when I catch my reflection in the dark, it doesn't move right. It lags, like it's thinking before it decides to follow. Sometimes, if I look long enough, it smiles before I do. Last night, I dreamed I was back in the hospital. Only this time, I wasn't the one in the bed. I was watching through the glass, smiling, while the other me begged to be let out. The stain was smaller when I moved in. It was just a faint rusty patch beneath. The carpet in the living room, the kind you'd barely notice unless you were looking. But after a week, I realized it was growing. I'd catch it out of the corner of my eye, a darker shape spreading across the floorboards, like spilled ink. Each day it seemed a little bigger. I told myself it was lighting, humidity, some trick of my imagination. But deep down, I knew what I was seeing. The stain was alive. It started the day after I moved into the house. Cheap place, old, but the rent was too good to pass up. 2 bedrooms, fenced yard, quiet neighborhood. The landlord said the last tenant had left suddenly, family issues. That night, unpacking boxes, I noticed the carpet near the corner of the room looked off-color, like an old water stain. When I peeled it back, the floor underneath was dark, reddish-brown, dry but uneven. I pressed my thumb to it. It felt tacky, and it smelled faintly like iron. I covered it up again and told myself it was nothing. Maybe wine, maybe rust. But 2 nights later, I woke up to a noise, a soft, rhythmic drip. I followed it, barefoot, into the living room. The stain had darkened, fresh, wet at the edges, and right in the middle of it. A tiny bead of liquid trembled before sliding down between the floorboards. The dripping sound came again, from underneath the house. I didn't sleep after that. The next morning, I called the landlord. He brushed it off, said old houses sometimes bleed rust from the pipes, but the stain wasn't near any pipes. It was in the middle of the floor. That night, I heard the drip again, louder this time. When I turned on the light, the stain looked like it had doubled in size. I knelt down. The smell hit me, strong and metallic, like pennies in hot water, and there, at the very edge of the dark patch, a single fingerprint, small, pressed into the wood as if someone had touched it while it was wet. I don't know why, but I felt watched. On the 3rd night, I moved the furniture away from that part of the floor. I was planning to scrub it clean, maybe bleach it, but when I lifted the carpet fully, the stain wasn't round anymore. It had taken on a shape. It looked like the outline of a person's head, shoulders, arms stretched out. I dropped the carpet back down, my hands shaking. That night, the dripping turned into something else, a faint, rhythmic thud from under the floorboards, like someone knocking slow. Careful. I called the landlord again. This time I demanded he send someone to check. He sighed, said he'd swing by tomorrow. He never showed, but I found something else that morning. By the baseboard near the wall, a small crack had appeared. The stain had crept toward it, as if drawn to the corner. And from that crack, the smell stronger, sour. When I leaned closer, I swear I heard breathing. I tried to convince myself it was stress. I'd just moved. Old house, creaky pipes, drafty floors. But every time I tried to ignore it, the stain spread further. By the end of the week, it reached the edge of the wall, and that's when the lights started flickering. Not random, patterned 3 short flickers. One long, over and over. It felt deliberate. I started sleeping in my car after that, but on the 3rd night, I woke up to the sound of knocking, faint but unmistakable, coming from inside the house, and when I looked through the living room window, the lights were on. The stain was gone. The next morning, I forced myself back inside. The floor looked clean. Too clean. The carpet was flat, smooth, like it had been replaced overnight. There was no smell, no stain. I almost laughed in relief. Maybe I'd finally lost it. But then I saw the back door, dirt tracks, muddy footprints leading from the yard straight to the living room. Small, bare prints. The kind a child would leave, and right there, in the center of the carpet, a new wet patch, fresh blood. I ripped the carpet up again. This time, it wasn't just the floor. The wood beneath was warped, soft to the touch, like something underneath was rotting. I pried a plank loose. The smell hit me so hard I gagged. Beneath the floor, darkness, damp earth, and then I saw it, a finger, gray, small, motionless. I stumbled back, almost falling. My flashlight slipped from my hand and rolled into the hole, casting light on what lay below. A child's hand, half buried in dirt. The stain wasn't a stain. It was seeping up from a body. I called the police. They came. They dug out. They found bones. Tiny, fragile, wrapped in something that looked like an old bedsheet. They sealed off the house. Questioned me for hours. I told them everything. But when I mentioned the noise, the dripping, the stain growing on its own, the detective's face tightened. He said the bones had been there for years, maybe decades. No recent activity. Then he said something that still makes my stomach turn. The last tenant used to foster kids. She went missing 2 years ago. Case was closed. I didn't go back inside for a while. The police told me to find another place until the investigation wrapped up. I moved into a motel. Tried to sleep, but I couldn't. Because every night, at the same time, I'd wake to a faint dripping sound, coming from the corner of the room. And when I turned on the light, I'd see it, a tiny red dot on the carpet, always in the same spot, always a little bigger the next night. I called the motel manager, told him to check the pipes. He looked confused, said that room didn't have any pipes under the floor. That night, I dreamed I was back in the house. The carpet was gone. The floorboards pulsed like skin. I heard something moving underneath, breathing, slow and wet. Then a voice whispered through the cracks, "You left me." I woke up drenched in sweat. The smell of blood hung heavy in the air. The red patch on the floor had spread to the size of my hand, and when I knelt down, I saw fingerprints pressed into it, small, child-sized. I tried to leave the motel the next morning, but when I opened the door, there was an envelope taped to it, old, yellow paper, no return address. Inside was a photo. My living room. The carpet rolled up, the stain gone, and in the corner of the picture, a small figure, a child, half hidden in shadow. Their eyes were hollow. The back of the photo had 3 words written in faint pencil, "Still here. Daddy." I never had kids. I told myself it was a prank, some sick joke from whoever used to own that house. But when I called the detective again, he said something that froze my blood. There was a name written on the bedsheet we found, faded but legible. "What name?" I asked. He hesitated. "Yours." That night, I went back to the house. I don't even know why. Some part of me needed to see it, to prove it wasn't mine. The door was unlocked. Inside, everything smelled wrong, sour and damp. The carpet had been removed, the floor sanded down, but the faint outline of the stain was still there. When I turned on the light, the shadows felt heavier than they should have. I took a step closer. The wood creaked under my foot. Then I heard it again, that slow, wet, dripping sound, coming from beneath the floor. I knelt down, listening. The boards were warm. I pressed my ear against them and heard it breathing, quick, shallow. Then a whisper, so soft I almost missed it. "You came back." My heart nearly stopped. I stumbled to my feet, backing toward the door, but before I could reach it, the light flickered, and for a split second, I saw the reflection of something standing behind me in the window. Glass, small, barefoot, drenched in red. The power went out. Darkness swallowed the room. The smell of iron filled my nose. Something brushed my ankle, small fingers, cold and wet. I ran. I don't remember how I got outside. When I turned back, the windows were glowing faint red from the inside, like the house was bleeding light, and in the doorway, a shape, a small silhouette. Watching. They tore the house down 2 months later, said the foundation was unsafe. But some nights, when I drive by the empty lot, the dirt still looks darker in the middle, like something's soaking up from underneath. And when it rains, puddles form there, dark red, even when the rest of the ground is dry. I tried moving again. Different city, different job. But every new place, it follows. It always starts the same way. A single red dot on the floor. No matter where I go, it grows a little each night. Sometimes, when I'm half asleep, I hear that soft voice again. "Daddy." The stain is at my feet right now, and this time, I think it's waiting for me to lie down beside it. The night I dug up my family's backyard, I wasn't looking for bones. I just wanted answers. For weeks, I'd been hearing something, a faint scraping sound coming from beneath the floorboards of the old farmhouse. My father used to say, "The house settles at night," but this wasn't that. It was deliberate, rhythmic, like someone clawing their way upward. The sound started the night after my mother's funeral. At first it was easy to dismiss. Grief does strange things. But when the floor began to vibrate beneath my bed, when dust shook loose from the ceiling with each pulse, I couldn't ignore it anymore. Something was alive under this house. The farmhouse had been in our family for generations. 100 acres of dead fields and rusted machinery, surrounded by nothing but woods and silence. After Mom's death, I was the last one left. My older brother, Tom, disappeared years ago. Dad followed a year later. I thought coming back here might help me piece things together, maybe find a sense of closure. Instead, it felt like the house was waiting. The first night I stayed, the air was heavy still, like the place had been holding its breath for too long. Every board creaked under my weight, every step echoed too loudly. The smell of mold and damp earth clung to everything. When I turned off the lights, I swore I heard whispering through the vents. It wasn't words, just the wet sound of breath moving through dust. The second night, I woke to the sound again, scraping beneath the floorboards. Slow and patient. It came from under the bed. I lay there frozen, staring into the dark, listening. My heart pounded so hard it made the mattress shake. Then it stopped. Silence stopped just when I thought I could breathe again. Something knocked from below. 3 dull, thuds dot, and then, faintly, the sound of humming. I didn't sleep after that. The next morning, I tore up the floorboards in my room. Beneath the wood was a thin layer of dirt, compact, undisturbed for years. I dug with my hands, desperate to find what was making that sound. Nothing. But I noticed something strange. The dirt wasn't just earth. It had a faint red tint, and it smelled sweet, like rust and rot mixed together. That's when I remembered something my mother once said, years ago, when I was a kid playing in the yard. "Don't dig too deep," she warned. "Some things in this family are meant to stay buried." At the time, I thought she was joking. Now, I wasn't so sure. That evening, I found an old box in the attic. Inside were photos, most of them black and white, edges curling, faces washed out. One caught my eye, a family portrait from the 1950s. Everyone looked stiff, unsmiling. My grandparents, my great-aunt Ruth, and 2 children I didn't recognize. Both young boys standing close together, one with a hand on the other's shoulder, written on the back, "The twins." 1953. We didn't have twins in our family. I looked closer and noticed something even stranger. The boy on the right looked almost exactly like my brother, Tom, when he was a kid, and the one on the left, he looked like me. That night, I heard the scraping again, only this time, it wasn't beneath the floor. It was coming from the walls. The sound moved, circling the room slowly, like something dragging its nails along the inside of the drywall. I pressed my ear against the plaster and felt a faint vibration. Then, a whisper, right next to my ear, "Let us out." I stumbled back, heart racing. The house was silent again, but the words echoed in my head long after. That's when I decided to dig outside. If something was buried beneath this property, if my family really had secrets, I was done pretending not to see them. I grabbed a shovel, a flashlight, and headed to the yard. The wind was sharp, slicing through my jacket as I started to dig near the old oak tree, the one my mother used to call the marker. The ground was soft, damp from the rain. Each shovel hit released a smell I'll never forget, sweet, metallic, and wrong. After the 3rd foot, my shovel hit something solid. Wood dot, a small box. I wiped the dirt off and pried it open. Inside were bones, tiny ones, and something else. A strip of faded cloth, maybe from a child's shirt. There was a name embroidered on it, Thomas. My vision blurred. My brother's name. I fell back, the air leaving my lungs. Tom wasn't dead. He'd just vanished one day when we were kids, 10 years old. My parents told me he ran away. They never filed a report. They told everyone he couldn't handle the family. But I remembered that day. The screaming, the way Dad had dragged Mom inside by her wrist, the sound of something breaking, and then silence. After that, no one said Tom's name again, until now. The next morning, I woke up on the couch, still wearing my boots. I don't remember falling asleep, but someone had been in the house. The dirt I'd tracked in was gone. The windows were locked from the inside, and on the kitchen table, next to my empty coffee cup, was a new photo. It was me, standing outside by the oak tree, holding the shovel. The picture had been taken from inside the house. I called the police. They searched the property, found nothing. No sign of forced entry, no fingerprints, no evidence of anyone else being here. When I showed them the bones, they took them for testing. The detective promised to follow up. He never did. After they left, I sat on the porch until sunset, watching the shadows stretch across the field. The air felt wrong again, thick and heavy, like before a storm, and when the wind picked up, I heard it. A voice, faint but clear, carried from the direction of the oak tree. Keep digging. That night, I dreamed of my brother. He was standing at the foot of my bed, covered in dirt, his skin pale and torn. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. When he finally spoke, it wasn't in words. It was a sound, a low, rattling groan, like air escaping from lungs that hadn't drawn breath in decades. I woke up gasping, drenched in sweat. The house smelled like soil, and when I sat up, my sheets were covered in muddy handprints. I went back outside with the shovel. The moonlight was weak, barely enough to see. The earth where I'd dug was disturbed again, freshly turned. Someone had been there. I started digging deeper, faster. My hands blistered, my breath fogging in the cold air. Then I hit something else, another box, larger this time. When I pried it open, there wasn't a skeleton inside. There was a folder, old papers, yellowed with age. River's family record. Confidential. Inside were birth certificates, medical forms, and a single report dated 1953. Subject A, terminated. Subject B, stable. Procedure successful. Memory implantation confirmed. Keep separated. Below the text was a black and white photograph. 2 boys. Again identical. The same twins from the earlier picture, only this time. One had his eyes crossed out with pen, and under it, someone had written, "The living will carry the dead." I don't remember dropping the folder, but I remember the sound, paper scattering across dirt, the whisper of wind against the fields. The air shifted, and I smelled that same sweet rot again. Behind me, the ground moved, just slightly, like something pushing upward. I stepped back. The soil cracked. A pale hand broke through the surface. I ran. I didn't stop until I was inside, slamming the door shut, locking it twice. My breathing was wild, uneven. My hands were shaking too hard to grab my phone. When I finally got it, I tried to call the police again, but there was no signal. Then, I heard it. Footsteps, slow heavy dot, crossing the porch, each one louder than the last. Then, a knock. 3 soft knocks, followed by a voice. Open the door, brother. It wasn't my imagination. It was Tom's voice, older, rougher, but him. I backed away from the door, holding my breath. The knocking came again, harder this time. Please, he said. It's cold. I couldn't move, couldn't think. He started laughing, low and broken. You don't remember, do you? His voice cracked into a whisper. Mom made them pick one, and they picked you. The house went quiet again. For a long moment, I thought he was gone. Then I heard the sound of footsteps moving across the porch and back toward the yard. I crept to the window and looked out. The moon was bright enough now to see him, standing by the oak tree, tall, thin, and wrong. He turned his head toward me. His eyes were dark holes. His skin, stretched and gray dot. Then he smiled and sank back into the ground. I left the next morning, packed what I could, and drove until the house disappeared behind me. But even now, weeks later, I can still feel it, that smell, that heaviness in the air. The police called. Yesterday, they said the bones I found weren't Tom's. They weren't even human. They were animal remains. But the DNA on the cloth matched me. And there was something else when they dug deeper. They found another body, adult, female, estimated to have been buried sometime in the last 5 years. The detective asked if I had any idea who it could be. I didn't answer, because I already knew. My mother never left this house. They didn't bury her in the cemetery like I thought. They buried her under the tree. And now, sometimes, when I'm half asleep, I hear her voice again, faint and calm, whispering from somewhere deep beneath my floor. It's your turn now, sweetheart. Last night, I woke up to find dirt on my pillow. Not much, just a sprinkle. But this morning, there's more. The ground outside is cracked again. The oak tree's roots have split open, twisting toward the house like they're reaching. And when I pressed my ear to the floor, I heard humming again, the same song my mother used to sing when we were little. Only this time, there were 2 voices. I tried to burn the papers, but they won't catch. The folder is still on the table, the edges curling, but never turning to ash. The words keep separated glow faintly. In the light, I understand now. I was never the only one left. I was just the one they kept. The one who was supposed to forget Dot, and the thing under the earth, the thing that wears my brother's voice. It wants me to remember. I hear it again now, under the floor, under the bed. That scraping sound, closer each time. It's not trying to get out anymore. It's digging upward, reaching. I can smell it. Through the vents, dirt, blood, rot. The air is warm, wet against my skin. The floorboards are trembling beneath my feet. Something presses upward from beneath, slow, deliberate, patient, and when I lean down, I swear I can hear her voice again. Don't dig too deep, she says softly. Some things in this family are meant to stay buried. Then, faintly, Tom's voice joins hers. Not anymore. The boards are splitting open now, and I can see fingers pushing through the cracks. One pale hand, then another, and the worst part is, they both look exactly like mine.